It is one of Donald Trump's first major trips of his second term as president, and once again, all eyes are on Saudi Arabia. Ahead of the visit, Trump has given a green light to a staggering $100 billion arms deal, a signal that Riyadh remains Washington's most crucial ally in the Middle East. But this is not new territory for Trump. In fact, during his first term in 2017, Saudi Arabia was the very first foreign destination that he chose after taking office. It was a powerful statement about the kingdom's importance to the Trump administration. Trump's ties with the royal kingdom run deep, and they're also deeply personal. Trump's businesses have long had lucrative connections with wealthy Saudi investors, including from the royal family. Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, enjoys close relations with Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, a bond that has translated into billions of dollars of investments into Kushner's private ventures even after the Trump presidency ended in 2020. But the importance of Saudi Arabia continues into Trump's second term. In a striking shift in global diplomacy, Riyadh recently hosted the first ever direct meeting between American and Russian officials. It was the first time that diplomats from Moscow and Washington had met since the start of the Ukraine war. The fact that the venue for this was Riyadh for a first-of-its-kind event underscores Saudi Arabia's emerging role as a geopolitical kingmaker. Behind the scenes, Trump is working on a high-stakes gamble, normalizing ties with Iran through a new, reimagined nuclear deal, but not out of love for Tehran. The real beneficiary on Trump's nuclear deal will actually be Saudi Arabia. A stable, contained Iran means that Saudi Arabia can focus on economic expansion and regional dominance without the constant threat of war. And Trump is even courting Russia and Moscow's support to make the Iran deal happen. In fact, he has leveraged Moscow's deep ties with Tehran to cut a deal which will eventually serve Riyadh's interests. Trump has even said that Russia could play host to Iran's enriched uranium once the nuclear deal is signed. So why would Saudi Arabia back a deal between Washington and Tehran? After all, the current deal, which the second Trump administration is negotiating with Iran, looks very similar to the same deal that Trump had pulled out of in 2018, saying that his predecessor Obama had cut a bad deal. Even Saudi Arabia had welcomed Trump pulling out of that JCPOA deal back in 2018. But now, even the view from Saudi Arabia looks quite different. In fact, the kingdom's foreign ministry issued a statement recently saying that it hoped that the talks between the United States and Iran, mediated by neighboring Oman, would enhance peace in the region and the wider world. Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman even dispatched his brother, the defense minister, Prince Khalid bin Salman, to Tehran, where he was received warmly by Iranian officials who were dressed in military regalia. He then handed over a personal letter from MBS to Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. In his first term, Trump brokered what is famously called the Abraham Accords, normalizing relations between Israel and key Arab countries like the UAE and Bahrain. This was seen as a seismic shift in Middle Eastern diplomacy. But the crown jewel of all of this deal-making was still elusive, which is a formal diplomatic agreement between Israel and Saudi Arabia. That deal, if and when it's signed, would be historic and transformational. But that deal has been stalled by the ongoing war in Gaza, in which more than 50,000 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli forces. The continuation of that war makes any public rapprochement between Saudi Arabia and Israel politically toxic across the Arab world. For America and for Trump personally, bringing Saudi Arabia and Israel together is not just about peace, it's about redefining alliances in the Middle East. It's about isolating Iran and creating a new American security architecture in the Middle East with Saudi Arabia as the anchor. So what changed? Relations between Saudi Arabia and Iran have warmed up over the past decade. As important as it is, Saudi Arabia is in the middle of an economic diversification program. The Crown Prince, MBS, wants to transform his kingdom from being overly dependent on oil. He wants to make it into a business, technology, and tourism hub. The prospect of Iranian drones and missiles flying over Saudi Arabia will pose a serious threat to MBS's economic plan. Iran and the United States wrapped up a second round of diplomatic talks just in these last few days over Tehran's nuclear activities. This now sets the tempo for rapid-paced negotiations between Tehran and Washington. Trump, though, has been pretty vague about the objectives of this deal, other than to repeat time and time again that the ultimate objective is that Iran must never get a nuclear bomb. But Iranian officials say that the deal that is taking shape and the one that they are engaged in with Washington would not explicitly require them to dismantle the entire nuclear infrastructure in that country. Separately, the Trump administration has revived talks over a deal that would give Saudi Arabia access to U.S. nuclear technology and also potentially allow Saudi Arabia to enrich uranium. Arab states, including Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Jordan, Qatar, and Bahrain, have all welcomed these talks, preferring diplomacy to an escalating conflict. But it's not quite as simple as that, because in 2023, Iran and Saudi Arabia announced a formal reconciliation. That was mediated not by the United States, but by China. By then, Prince Mohammed bin Salman's foreign policy had shifted towards calming down regional conflicts. Saudi Arabia is a key U.S. ally. It's also a prime target for retaliation when Iran seeks to strike American interests. Saudi Arabia's proximity to Iran makes it easy for Iranian proxies like Hamas, the Houthis, and Hezbollah to attack. In fact, in 2019, one of Saudi Arabia's key oil installations was hit in a sophisticated Iran-backed attack. Saudi officials have lamented that episode taught them the limitations of their American alliance, and that episode pushed the Saudi Arabian kingdom towards talks and a normalization of ties with Iran rather than continuing with a protracted conflict. For Trump, this would be the ultimate legacy, a peace deal that has eluded every U.S. president before him. This is more than diplomacy. It is unfinished business, a personal crusade to reshape the Middle East, redraw alliances, and secure his own place in history. But in a region where loyalties shift like the desert sand, even the best laid plans can vanish with the desert wind.